Welcome to Fade Radar. Meet our team.
This challenge is about the gap between what program directors commit to the CFO and what actually happens. Forecasts unlock or restrict portfolio investment, but they fade as programs progress. Forecasts are overly optimistic, credibility erodes over time, and there is no visibility into which suppliers or contracts are driving the errors. There are four personas: the CFO, who needs defensible forecasts, the program director, who needs confidence to commit, the commercial manager, and the project controls lead. On success, it's about the clear visibility of fate, identifying systematic drivers, and delivering decision-ready outputs.
What we've built is an MVP that's fully usable. We've currently built it in Streamlit because of the agility that we needed. It's a live web app, works in any browser, it's ready to scale. And the way that we got here is by using a Miro board, fully decomposing the problem, speaking with stakeholders that we were lucky enough to speak to make sure we were on the right track. Everything is fully documented. We set up our own GitHub repo, we register a domain, and there's an in-app methodology page. We also have a very cool feature, which is the ability to send podcasts to stakeholders once a week.
We started with the Rolls-Royce supply chain data, which was received as an Excel file with multiple data sheets. We imported this data into data frames. Data frames allow us to aggregate the information by forecast period while isolating each of the systemic drivers of forecast error. We trained linear regression models with the data from January to November and used these models. These results are seen in the forecast accuracy page of the web app.
Let's have a look at the actual app itself. On the homepage, you've got a quick summary for the program director. And as well as the headlines, you've also got the ability to listen to them talk.
Briefing.
And depending on what persona you use, you get a
CFO
different
briefing.
load of headlines
Portfolio-
and a different discussion. And then we go on to the main dashboard.
This section focuses on forecast performance across programs and time periods. At the top, KPI cards summarize forecasts and actual spend, along with error, accuracy, and failure rates, giving a quick view of performance. The filters on the left allow the user to refine the view, with all the visuals updating dynamically. The central chart shows how forecasts evolve over time based on version updates, highlighting changes leading up to delivery.
So the rest of the app, the left-hand side, you could see that we split it up into predict, explain, and prescribe, which was part of the brief. On the predict, we've got the ability to look at portfolio briefings, and we can choose one of the personas and immediately generate a CFO briefing. We've done this through linking up with the Anthropic API, but for future releases, we could use a local model such as Google Gemma 4 to make sure that security is paramount. And immediately you get a full review, which you can download or you can even listen to. And there's lots of different charts, different ways of cutting the data. And then we also look at forecast fade, which looks at the difference between forecast and actual, the fade signature, and the cohort fades. And then the forecast accuracy, it shows the predictions versus actual, the driver impact ranking, and drill down by entity. And then we've also got a what if scenario, which means that you can go on something like, what would happen if we scope froze the program for supplier 2? And immediately there you can see that whilst you might recover some money, it might have an impact on the failure rate. The second element is the explain, where we have some supplier intelligence and a supplier league ranked on different criteria. And we also have a behavior profile, so we can see how the different profiles are behaving, and then a profile summary. And then we've also got a heat map where we can really drill in on either absolute error rate, failure rate, or forecast variance and see where some of the problems are. So here you can see that supplier 13 may have an issue. When you look at failure rates, immediately you can see where the red ones are. Final part is the prescribe, where we can have an intervention queue where we can actually go and have a look at what the top interventions might be. So the top 5 here, you can see, could save around £100 million with things like reallocating unused flexible envelope, migrating TMN contracts to fixed price contracts. So real actionable insights. And then the final part is the ability to actually talk to the data, where you can ask questions and it will provide a very robust answer.
To demonstrate how our models can predict actual spend, we can take a look at supplier 6 here. We can see that for December, it predicts a £3.36 million spend. And when we compare it to the actual December spend, it was 3.54.
We started looking at aggregating deeper details, such as the supplier profiles, the region, the payment terms, and the program phase. We aggregated on each of these data individually because it shows certain details that isn't available in the direct data set. For example, it shows that the UK obviously has more total fade overall.
This solution improves visibility of forecast performance and highlights where forecasts are inaccurate. By identifying key drivers of error, it enables teams to take earlier action and make more informed decisions. It's also designed to be simple and accessible to use, with features such as text-to-speech, making insights easier to consume.
There are still a number of further improvements we'd like to do, such as further drill down capacity, adding time comparison so that we can see how things change over time, and a commentary for variances. And we'd also like to move from Streamlit to a more complete solution. Question number 1, what data inputs does your approach require, and which of those are essential versus optional?
It needs a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet. Our approach builds a linear regression model using forecast spend and actual spend from the supply chain data. The optional input data can be supplier ID, contract type, program ID, and supplier profile. We would then transform this data into a web application.
Judge's question number 2. What would your solution show differently to a CFO compared with a commercial manager or a project controls lead?
To the CFO, it gives the information what to trust, what available capital is there, what suppliers offer the highest risks, and which are the biggest fail drivers. To the commercial manager, it's a different information that is given. The intervention briefing states weekly priorities. For the project controls lead, it's about the forecast data quality, but you get a tailored response to your problem and your position if you ask the chatbot.
Judges' questions number 3. How would you implement the feedback from various roles to improve the model?
I'd love to be able to capture the feedback within the app, so every user, they can flag an intervention and say whether it performed well or badly, and that will change the algorithm and it will get better and better in time. I'd also like to close the loops on outcomes, so when an intervention is actioned, we track the actual cost recovered versus the estimate, and that becomes the training data. The model learns who is right about what. And then basically this reinforcement learning layer throughout it all, so it just keep improving